August 26th, 1071. On the dusty plains of eastern Anatolia, the fate of an entire civilization balanced on the edge of a single afternoon. On one side, the Eastern Roman Empire, 1,000 years old, built on the assumption that it would last forever. On the other, Alp Arslan, the heroic lion. The tremors from that afternoon would reach so far and run so deep that Anatolia, the land beneath their feet, would never again be what it had been that morning. This is the Battle of Manzikert.
Wolves Chronicle. Echoes from the Ages.
To understand how Manzikert happened, you have to understand how the Eastern Roman Empire had already begun to destroy itself, long before a single Seljuk arrow was fired. The Eastern Roman Empire of the mid-11th century was magnificent from the outside. Its capital, Constantinople, was the largest and wealthiest city in the Christian world. Its walls had never been breached. Its navy controlled the sea lanes. Its bureaucracy was the envy of every kingdom in Europe. But inside, rot. For decades, two factions had been tearing the empire apart. The civilian aristocracy of Constantinople, wealthy, educated, contemptuous of soldiers, and the military aristocracy of the provinces, hardened, ambitious, and increasingly ignored. The civilian faction had won. They cut military spending. They disbanded border units. They replaced trained soldiers with cheap mercenaries who owed loyalty to no one. The great frontier army that had defended Anatolia for generations was hollowed out. And while Constantinople argued about budgets and court titles, the Seljuks came. During the 1060s, Seljuk raiders poured into Roman Armenia and eastern Anatolia. They were not yet invaders, not officially. They sacked cities, burned farmland, and disappeared back into the steppe before any Roman force could catch them. The Romans could not stop them. In 1068, a new emperor took the throne, Romanos IV Diogenes. He was a soldier, a real one. He had spent his career on the frontiers, understood the military, and was appalled at what he found when he came to power. He immediately began rebuilding, reforming the army, reinforcing the borders, personally leading campaigns into Seljuk territory. He was exactly what the Eastern Roman Empire needed. He was also walking into a trap that had been years in the making. Romanos IV Diogenes came to the throne by an unusual route. He married the widowed Empress Eudokia, making him emperor by matrimony rather than birth. The civilian aristocracy of Constantinople never forgave him for it. Chief among his enemies was the powerful Doukas family, who believed the throne should have been theirs. Romanos knew this. He brought Andronikos anyway. He didn't have a choice. This was the empire he had inherited. Fractured, suspicious, a man appointed to save his country forced to bring his enemies with him. On the other side of the frontier, Alp Arslan was building something new. He had become Sultan of the Seljuk Empire in 1063. His name in Turkish meant exactly what it sounded like, the heroic lion. He was 40 years old in 1071, at the height of his power, and had spent his reign expanding the Seljuk domains in every direction. But Alp Arslan was not a simple conqueror. He was calculating, patient. He understood that his greatest enemy was not the Eastern Roman Empire. It was the Fatimid Caliphate in Egypt, the great rival of Sunni Islam. Rome was a distraction, a border problem to be managed, not a war to be fought. In February of 1071, Romanos sent envoys to Alp Arslan proposing a renewal of their old peace treaty.
Great Sultan, my emperor wishes only to honor what was agreed between our peoples. He asks that the existing peace between Rome and your realm continue as it has been.
The hand that reaches for us in peace, we hold. The hand that reaches for us in war, we take. Go tell your emperor which one he sent. The treaty was a lie. Romanos had used the peace offer as a deliberate distraction to keep Alp Arslan occupied in Syria while he marched a massive Roman army into Armenia to retake the lost fortresses. Alp Arslan learned what Romanos had done. He abandoned the siege of Aleppo. He turned north. He was not angry, he was focused. The Roman army that marched east in the spring of 1071 was on paper formidable. Estimates range between 50 and 60,000 men. Roman regulars from the eastern and western provinces, Norman and Frankish mercenaries under a commander named Roussel de Bailleul, Pecheneg horse archers, Turkish auxiliaries, Armenian infantry, Varangian guards. A mosaic of the medieval world assembled under one banner. In practice, it was a coalition held together with suspicion and money. The march across Anatolia was long and difficult. His German mercenaries plundered villages along the route, damaging the loyalty of the very people he was marching to protect. He was forced to dismiss them. By the time the army reached Theodosiopolis in June, the cracks were already showing. His generals debated. Some wanted to push forward immediately and strike the Seljuks before they could concentrate. Others, including Nicephorus Bryennios, urged caution. Fortify here, wait for better information. Romanos decided to advance. He then made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his short life. He split the army. A large detachment, possibly a third of his total force, was sent north of Lake Van under the general Joseph Tarquiniotes, tasked with securing the fortress of Cleot. Romanos himself would march to retake Manzikert, a small Roman fortress the Seljuks had captured, expecting the two halves to reunite afterward. He captured Manzikert on August 23rd without significant resistance. The fortress was taken. He was pleased. Then the scouts came back. The Seljuks were not far away. They were not still in Syria. They were here, and closer than anyone had expected. Alp Arslan had crossed the frontier with his cavalry, somewhere between 20 and 25,000 men, almost entirely horseback, almost entirely archers. They were already in the area. They knew exactly where Romanos was. Romanos did not know where Tarquiniotes was. He sent messages. No reply came. He never would receive one. What had happened to Tarquiniotes remains one of the great mysteries of the battle. Roman sources are strangely silent. Muslim sources describe a Seljuk victory in the north. Whether Tarquiniotes was defeated, deserted, or simply chose not to return, he and his men were gone. The Roman army at Manzikert was now half of what it had been. The night before the battle, the situation worsened further. Romanos had Turkish mercenaries in his ranks, Pecheneg and other Turkic auxiliaries. During the night of August 25th, many of them made contact with their Seljuk kinsmen across the lines, and crossed over. Romanos woke on August 26th with a smaller army, a missing detachment, and the knowledge that men who had eaten his food and taken his gold were now drawing bows against him. He rejected a final Seljuk peace offer. He formed his battle line. He marched out to meet Alp Arslan. The plain near Manzikert was open and flat, perfect terrain for cavalry. Romanos understood this was not ideal for his heavy infantry. He understood his situation was bad. He advanced anyway. The Seljuks did not stand and receive the Roman advance. They never intended to. As the Roman line moved forward, the Seljuk cavalry began to fall back, not in panic, in control. Every time the Romans pushed forward, the Turks retreated. Every time they slowed, the Turks circled. The Seljuk horse archers fired constantly from the flanks, from the rear, from every angle. Loose, mobile, never stopping long enough to be caught, never close enough for the Roman infantry to engage. This was the toluma, the classic step encirclement tactic that Turks call the Turan tactic. Let the enemy advance, give them ground. While they move forward, loop around the flanks, tighten the circle, strike when they are stretched, confused, and exhausted. Romanos ordered a withdrawal to regroup before nightfall. The order was heard differently across the line. The right wing misunderstood, or perhaps they panicked. When the order to withdraw reached them, they didn't pull back in order, they broke. The word spread that the Romans were retreating, that the battle was lost, and Andronikos Doukas, in command of the rear guard, heard the same order. He turned around and marched back to camp, not covering the emperor's retreat, not holding position, not fighting.
Traitor!
He left. Some sources call it a misunderstanding. Others call it exactly what it was: deliberate abandonment. With the rear guard gone and the right wing broken, the Roman center was exposed on three sides. The Seljuks saw the opening. They attacked. The battle that followed was a slaughter. The Roman right wing collapsed almost immediately, its soldiers convinced they had been betrayed. The left, under Bryennios, held longer, but was eventually overwhelmed. The Imperial Guard in the center fought with everything they had. Romanos fought personally. Multiple sources confirmed this. He was wounded, possibly more than once, and kept fighting. His guard was cut down around him, man by man. Eventually, he was surrounded. Injured, separated from his men, alone on a field littered with the dead. The Seljuks discovered him. They did not know who he was at first. An emperor fighting in the line was not expected. When they realized they had captured the Roman emperor, they brought him to Alp Arslan.
What would you have done if it were I who was brought before you as a prisoner?
Perhaps I would have killed you. Or exhibited you in the streets of Constantinople.
My punishment is far heavier than that. I forgive you, and I set you free.
Romanos remained a captive for 1 week. During that time, he was allowed to eat at the Sultan's table. A peace treaty was negotiated. Romanos agreed to surrender Antioch, Edessa, Hierapolis, and Manzikert. A royal marriage alliance was arranged between Alp Arslan's son and Romanos' daughter. The terms were severe, but they were survivable. The vital core of Anatolia remained Roman. If the treaty had held, Manzikert might have been a setback. Painful, humiliating, but recoverable. It did not hold. Because the moment Romanos had been captured on that field, Andronikos Doukas had ridden hard for Constantinople. By the time Romanos was released and began his journey home, the Doukas family had already declared him deposed. Michael the seventh Doukas sat on the throne. Romanos tried to fight back. He raised troops, fought a brief civil war, and lost. He surrendered under a promise of safe conduct and clemency. The promise was broken. He was blinded, a common Roman method of disabling a political rival without technically executing him. The procedure was carried out with unusual brutality. His wounds became infected. Within months, Romanos IV Diogenes, the man who had tried to save his empire, was dead. Alp Arslan, who had shown him more mercy than his own countrymen, was assassinated the following year during an unrelated campaign. The peace treaty died with both of them. Manzikert was not, in the immediate sense, a catastrophic military defeat. Roman casualties were significant, but not annihilating. The empire still stood. Constantinople still stood. But something had broken that could not be repaired. The sacred person of the emperor, God's representative on earth, the living symbol of Roman invincibility, had been captured, defeated, made to kneel. And then, when he came home, blinded and discarded by the very men who had served beside him. The psychological wound was mortal, even if the physical one was not. The civil war that followed Manzikert consumed what remained of Roman military strength. General after general declared himself emperor. Province after province descended into chaos. Within 15 years of the battle, the Seljuks controlled most of Asia Minor. Cities that had been Greek for 1,000 years fell without a fight. By 1080, the Sultanate of Rum, the Seljuk state in Anatolia, had its capital at Nicaea. less than 150 miles from Constantinople. The consequences of Manzikert stretched across centuries and continents. The Roman emperor, desperate, sent letters to the Pope in Rome. "Help us, the Turks have taken our lands. The holy places of Christendom are under threat. Send soldiers." Pope Urban II read those letters. In 1095, he stood at the Council of Clermont and delivered a speech that changed the history of the world. The First Crusade was, in part, a response to Manzikert. The slow Turkification of Anatolia, the gradual transformation of what had been a Greek Christian heartland into a Muslim Turkish one, was a direct consequence of Manzikert. The eventual fall of Constantinople in 1453, 4 centuries later, became possible at Manzikert. And Anatolia, the land that is today the core of the Turkish Republic, was made Turkish at Manzikert. You can subscribe our channel. The next campaign, the First Crusade, is already coming.
Wolves Chronicle, Echoes from the Ages.